So let's continue with this problem. So this is where we left off, but the video was getting too long. So let's do this other problem with still with the 45, 45, 90 and the 30, 60, 90 triangles. So here we just want to find the unknown sides. So we want to figure out what that little b, that big B, and that little c is. So first of all, the one thing that I see is that you have a 90-degree angle here, and you also have a 30-degree angle. So that means that the other one must be a 60-degree angle. So that big B is going to be 60 degrees. Okay. Another way that you can do it is that you know that the whole thing is 180. So you can take 90 plus 30 plus B equals 180. And then just solve for B. And you can also do it that way. Okay. So now let's think about the nature of the 30, 60, 90 triangle. So let's start off by drawing the triangle again. So we know that 30 degrees is right here, and so it's 60 degrees. So we know that there's a 7 over here. We don't know what B is, and we don't know what little c is. So that's what we're trying to figure out. So now let's remember how we're supposed to be doing these types of problems. So if you remember, we have a 30, 60, 90 triangle up here. So this is kind of how we had it before. So a 30, 60, 90 triangle look like this. So let's just try to shape it up again. So we have, oops, went a little too far. So we have something that looks like this. We said that this was 60 degrees. This was 30 degrees. We said that this was square root of 3 and then x. This was 2 and this was just 1, and they were all with x's. Okay, so if you look up here, yeah, it's just like that one. Okay, so now notice if I take a look at this triangle and I take a look at this one, they aren't the same. So what I gotta do is flip this guy, like kind of like do like a little clockwise rotation. So let's rotate that a little bit so that it kind of looks like what we have. So here, if I flip it over that way, we have the 60 degrees over here now. We have the 30 degrees over here. We have the 90 degrees right there. So here we have the 2x. Here we have the square root of, oh, that's wrong. This is the 1x, and this is the square root of 3x. Okay, so now we have these two triangles, and we're going to try to figure out what each of the rest of them are. So you can clearly see that this 7 corresponds with this x. Okay, so we know by just looking at them that x is going to be equal to 7. Okay, so now if we look at the c value, the c corresponds with this 2x, so this c corresponds with this 2x. We already know what x is just 7, so c is going to be equal to 2 times 7, which gives me 14. Okay, and now the last thing that we're going to look at this b. This b corresponds with the square root of 3x. So b equals square root of 3x. We already know what x is equal to, so b is equal to 7 square root of 3. So typically, you want to write the number right in front of the square root. Okay, and that's basically all it is. So you kind of want to manipulate it so with things that you already know. So yeah. Okay, so now let's do this other problem. So solve for the unknown sides again. So one thing that I noticed is that you have this pi over 4. Remember that pi over 4 is just 45 degrees. So this guy's just 45 degrees. So that means that this is a 45, 45, 90 triangle. So if I try to do one right here, pi over 4 is just 45 degrees. This is going to be also 45 degrees. Okay, and remember, if you know a 45, 45, 90 triangle, you know that this is going to be x, x, and then x square root of 2. Okay, so in this case, if I just try to equate what I know that 20 and x are right here, so that means that x is equal to 20. Okay, now let's try to figure it out. So now we know here's p. Okay, so what is p going to be equal to? P is going to be equal to this x. We already know what x is. X is just 20. So p is 20. And then the other one that we have is this h. So h is going to correspond with this x square root of 2. So h equals x square root of 2. We already know what x is. So h equals 20 square root of 2. Okay, so we already figured out what the sides were based on the 45, 45, 90 triangle. Okay. All right, so now let's do this other problem. Okay, so this is an application problem. So here we have a 15-foot long ladder. It's leaned against a wall so that the ladder makes a 60-degree angle with the floor. So use a trigonometric function to determine how high up the wall, the ladder reaches. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna do is let's try to draw this. So we have this 15-foot ladder. It's leaning against the wall. So let's say this is the wall. And you have a ladder, and the ladder is just leaning against it. Okay, so this is just ladder. And this ladder is 15 feet long. Okay, so lying against the ladder. And the ladder makes a 60-degree angle with the floor. So if this is the floor right here, floor, then this makes a 60-degree angle. Okay, so what I want to know is use a trig function to try to figure out how high this ladder is up the wall. So I want to know this guy. What is this height? Well, already we kind of can see that this is going to be a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Okay, so one thing that we want to be able to do is that, well, you can always think about the triangles themselves, or you can just try to figure out, well, I want to know what this height is. I know that this is going to be the opposite over the hypotenuse. So we can just use a sine function. We can say that sine of 60 degrees is equal to h over 15. Okay, now we can try to figure out what sine of 60 degrees is. Right now we haven't done the calculator stuff anymore, but we remember that we know how to figure out what sine of 60 degrees is. So if you go back up to sine of 60 degrees, so if you look at here, if I look at the sine of 60 degrees, that's just going to be the square root of 3x over 2x. Okay, so that thing is just going to be square root of 3x. Oops, 1, 2, 4. Square root of 3x over 2x. Okay, equals h over 15. Notice that the x's cancel out, and you have square root of 3 over 2 equals h over 15. And then you can move the 15 over, and you're going to get h is equal to 15 square root of 3 over 2. Okay, so this would be the solution. Now, alternatively, you could have done it another way as well. Okay, so so another way that you could have done it is just instead of using a trig function, you could have just used this 30, 60, 90 triangle, said that this was 60 degrees, this is 30 degrees. This is a 90-degree angle. We know that this is square root of 3x. We know that this is going to be 2x. And we know that this is just going to be x. So another way that we could have done it is just equate them. So we know that this 15 that's right here corresponds with this 2x. So I know that 15 is going to be equal to 2x. So when I divide it by 2, you're going to get x equals 15 over 2. So then if I wanted to know what the height was, okay, so here's our height, which is h. I'm going to equate that with the other guy. So h equals square root of 3x. We already know what x is. That's just that 15 over 2. So we're going to plug it in there. So 15 square root of 3 over 2. We still get the same answer. So any of these two answers would be correct. Just one of them, you had to use a trig function, which we did. And the other one was just doing what we've been doing so far. So it doesn't really matter which one you do. What we're going to be looking at in the future is that not everything is a 45, 45, 90, and a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So we will be looking at other different angles. So we're going to do that in the next video. But right before we get into the next video, I do want to give you guys this definition. Angle of elevation. So the angle of elevation is just the angle between the horizontal line of the line and the line from the object to the observer's eye above an observer relative to the observer. So basically, if you think about angle of elevation, you can think about, like, maybe here's me, I'm right there, and from my observer's eye, I'm looking at a tower maybe, or like at a tree. Okay, so my angle of elevation will be from my line of sight to the tree. So what angle does that make? Okay, that will be the angle of elevation. Okay, so, and you can kind of think about you're levitating, I don't know. You're looking up, okay? So it's basically going upward. That's going to be the angle of elevation. The angle of depression is kind of a little bit opposite. So the angle between the horizontal and the line from the object to the observer's eye below an observer's relative to the observer. So let's say, for example, I'm up a tree or something. So I'm right over here. So basically my angle of elevation, so let's say this is a line, and let's say I'm looking at an object over here, staring at something. Okay, the angle of elevation, oh, I'm sorry, the angle of depression would be right here. Okay, not here. That's not correct. That's the common misconception. It'll be right here. So here's elevation, and here is depression. Okay, and I drew a kind of like a little picture here that will kind of make it a little easier to see. But so here the 60 degrees is actually the angle of elevation. Okay, so in the next video I'm going to show you guys a couple things. I'm going to show you guys how to use your calculator, and also how to do these word problems that are coming up.